What's going on? This is Grandson, and you're here watching Rock Sound.
The price of your greed is your son and your daughter. What you gonna do when there's blood in the water? When there's blood in the
Hey, James Wilson-Taylor here for Rock Sound, backstage in London, joined now, of course, by Grandson.
Woo! I'm fucking great, man. Thank you.
You seem hyped up, which is cool, because it's, you know, first time in the UK. Welcome to the UK, we should say, first of all. A few shows here and there, London tonight. How have you found the UK fans so far? Been getting to know them a little bit?
It's been great. It's been really great. Rap Boy's been awesome to tour with. It's a different relationship, I think, to live music and to rock and roll in particular here in the UK versus in America. And I don't think that there's any different. I think passion is passion. People are excited and fired up everywhere we go, but there's such a particular way of showing that energy here in the UK that is really addictive. It's going to be hard to leave behind.
I can imagine, man. No, we're excited to see you playing here tonight. I want to dive right into some of the kind of bigger things. We're going to talk music, we're going to talk all manner of stuff, but I want to dive in a really interesting talking point for you, which is, of course, politics has been right at the forefront, particularly in recent weeks with you guys, given the situation in the States. But what's nice, you built this real community around it. What were the kind of challenges or starting points in terms of actually beginning that, you know, the XX resistance and really kind of what's the word? Motivating your fans in that way.
Cool. Well, I felt that from the onset of I wanted to talk about real shit. I had been making music for other artists and trying to experiment with music of my own my whole life. A lot of it was very irreverent. A lot of it was just like, you know, partying, getting fucked up with your friends, with your mates. And I knew that I wanted to have more serious discussions. I wanted to use this platform to be about shit and not just talk about it. So I tried to, from the very onset, put that into my music. I found that when I was writing songs that were about heavier topics, things that a lot of artists weren't really interested in discussing, what I found was that the feedback I got was more meaningful, was deeper, and I latched onto that, and it kind of created a feedback loop where the more that feedback was that which I was looking for, the more I was writing and moving forward and setting that intention. So it became natural for me right from the beginning. I wanted to find ways to take these messages of youth empowerment and agency and motivating people off of our headphones and into the streets. So we were able to put together a fundraiser in Los Angeles with a UK artist by the name of Yungblud. That was really dope. And we're going to be expanding and finding ways to particularly motivate young artists, be it in film and in music in 2019. So what XX Resistance is, we're going to continue to expand upon in the next 365. But it's been exciting to just get started. I think that's for a lot of creative people, if you're watching this, a lot of people can kind of get paralyzed in, well, just because it isn't 100% fully formed yet, how can we start? And I think one of the most important things you can do that I think that this Grandson project has been a testament to is just get started. Yeah. Like by just putting your intention out into the world and moving forward with that intention, good things happen. So we've been able to, in a short amount of time, get people fired up, raise thousands of dollars for charity. And yeah, it's really just the beginning.
No, it's amazing to hear, man. And you alluded to it a bit there, but what is kind of very admirable about what you've been doing is you have put those beliefs and you have put those causes very much at the forefront of what you do. And it's interesting that a lot of artists will speak out about, you know, current political situations, but it's not necessarily as at the forefront as what you guys do. How do you think we can encourage, like you say, more younger artists to get involved and really make it a part of what they do creatively?
I think that first and foremost, if I lead by example and show that choosing to use your platform is not choosing not to be successful or whatever. When we're going to see tonight, you can still have the mosh pits and all the fun that comes with rock and roll and make it about things that you're passionate about. I would say if it's not something that you're particularly interested in or that you don't have really strong opinions in, then don't get involved. That being said, I think that we've come to a critical juncture in pop culture where your silence and your apathy is actually speaking volumes. So I think that especially in America, by choosing not to have your music address topics that are poignant, be it whether it's gun control, whether it's addiction and the opioid crisis, how we choose to navigate our feelings of pain and frustration and confusion and disenfranchisement. By choosing not to talk about those things, what you're saying to the people that are directly impacted by them is that you don't give a fuck about them. And I think that there are places in pop culture and places in music where that's okay, and people come there looking for escape, but that's not rock and roll. That has never been what rock and roll is about. That's never been what rock sound is about. So I think that by making music, rock music, alternative music, a reflection of the times, I think we are able to remind people that rock and roll will never be irrelevant. Rock and roll will never go away. As long as there is injustice, as long as there is revolution and rebellion, there will be electric guitars and circle pits and all that good stuff. And I think that what we're being able to see is a direct reflection that the more that you put that into the world, and like I said earlier, set that intention, people want that right now. People are tuned in, they're aware, they're fired up, they're pissed off, and any success that I'm having right now is a reflection of the young people.
No prayers, no thoughts. The body count is on your hands, no thoughts. No prayers.
Here's the other interesting detail I wanted to pick your brain about in terms of the last few weeks. You know, you were a big, vital voice in the community and in the scene, particularly when it came to the run-up to the midterm elections. We'll speak a bit about the gig and stuff with Yungblud in a minute, but it's just kind of...
Let's dive in.
Let's get stuck in, because I think what a lot of people worry about, especially young people, is momentum, you know, because that was a big election. Of course it was. There's another big one in like 2 years. You say you've got big plans ahead. You know, how can we help build the momentum moving forward over these next few years?
That's a great question. I think that one of the big things that I think the midterms provided an opportunity for was a reminder that getting pissed off and fired up is not something we should be doing once every 4 years. I think that if we continue to apply pressure, we continue to demand change, especially young people, because young people have always been the progressive voice looking forward. I think that if we maintain a sense of urgency and a sense of agency, the more that I could make one kid feel that their vote was actually meaningful and about something, the more I think that when the time comes in 4 years and we do have that critical moment, that person will exercise their right to vote, because that one vote is no smaller than the vote of the President of the United States. We all have one vote. Now, it's frustrating because two things need to happen. One, if you're going to get these kids fired up, you need to demand, especially in a two-party system, that somebody is paying attention and hearing what kids are calling for. We are disenfranchised because we don't trust that our best interests will be served if everybody is serving corporate lobbyist interests. So we need to get big money out of politics. We need to demand that we take constructive steps towards reversing some of the disastrous, short-sighted policies that have been pervasive when talking about the environment. We're talking about gun violence in America. These things are epidemics. They're serious, they're urgent, but we're not too late. I remain very optimistic, but we need to hold our elected officials accountable to do more than once every 4 years talk the talk. And I think by getting young people pissed off, we can collectively mobilize. And together, when we band that voting power together, you can really influence the bullshit that comes out of these politicians' mouths. So that's absolutely one part of it. And then the other part of it, I think, is when you're going to get people fired up, you run the risk of disillusionment or frustration. I witnessed in my own personal experience, though I was really fired up about a couple candidates, some of those candidates didn't win. So it can be really frustrating for a lot of people because a lot of the time the way that politics in America especially has gone, and I think it's happening increasingly so in the UK and in Canada and across the world, is it's becoming about one particular candidate. It's becoming this celebrity contest, whereas if you take a step back and look at an overarching narrative that is leaning towards a more progressive, accountable, inclusive state of the union, then from there you can look at, okay, maybe we didn't win every single battle, but the war is trending in the direction we want. So those are all things that we're trying to get across, and that's the importance in getting young people to vote.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Let's dive into the music side of things, big style as well, because you've just said, of course, Yungblud. That's a really interesting relationship. That's really, really cool. How did you guys meet? How did you come about in terms of doing this gig together?
Yeah, Dom is the homie. We linked up a couple times. Obviously, I think that in the emergence or re-emergence of alternative rock in youth culture, there have been a couple of kids that I'm keeping an eye on. He's absolutely one of them. And right from the onset, I was looking to extend olive branches. I think that when you look at hip-hop, you look at the collaborative nature of hip-hop, I think that that's something that needs to be integrated into rock and roll. Right. I think that I used to look at fandom, I used to look at creativity with a bit of a scarcity mentality before Grandson. I used to be threatened as a creative when I would see other people influenced by similar sounds that I was influenced by or making similar music, whereas now I'm just fired up when I see somebody else that's talking about youth, it's okay not to be okay, fuck what your parents think, fuck what your teacher tells you. Those are the kind of things that me and Dom bonded over. We had a couple mutual acquaintances, in particular our dear friend Allison Hagendorf, who kind of bridged the gap and linked us up. And I told him kind of the intention behind XX Resistance, that I wanted to start and debut this kind of foundation or movement or whatever we're going to call it with a bang. And his tour schedule happened to sync up and he was willing to be a part of it. So yeah, shouts out Dom. That's the homie.
Awesome, man. In the future, we'd love to see a collab with you guys. Have you guys talked about actual writing together?
Yeah, it's going down. You know, it's been tough because we've both been touring so much and making music. But yeah, there's definitely a couple artists that I'm looking to get in the studio with. He's absolutely one of them.
Awesome. Any hints as to who those other ones might be?
Well, you know, it's been cool. Like, I was fortunate enough to get to work with Tom Morello, who is a huge influence on me. My buddy AWOL Nation, who has become a mentor for me. We've been in the studio together working on new music. So there's going to be a couple opportunities for me to get some new music out. And it also provides an opportunity for me to think outside of the Modern Tragedy series. I've been trying to write in a kind of pretty cohesive narrative within this project, and some of the things that I want to talk about or songs I want to write, we don't necessarily know, or I don't necessarily know exactly how those are going to fit in. Right. And those songs can become really exciting opportunities to do new things, to expand, to introduce new audiences, and just to further establish no movement in music has ever been one man, one song. It's always been a community, be it in the revolution of neo-soul in the early 2000s or folk music in California in the 60s. Like, it's always a community. So I'm looking to build that community and be a part of that movement back towards real shit, not just lyrically but sonically, bringing back live guitars, bringing back the cathartic experience of a live show, doing all those things, but still speaking to kids and not just doing it in the way that our parents consumed it. I think that maybe that's one of the reasons that rock and roll had not necessarily been speaking to youth, particularly when I was in high school or something. I think that it's coming back in a big way, and it's coming back because, as opposed to segmenting electronic production or synthetic production elements to hip-hop or electronic music, I think rock and roll needs to embrace where young people are going, not just because I want young people to show, but because I fuck with that as a fan. Right. First and foremost, I consider myself, a music fan, and I was a hip-hop head before I was a rock fan in a lot of ways. So it's exciting for me to bridge those gaps. And whenever I see other people in the scene moving and shaking, I want to be ahead of the curve in extending to them encouragement, let them know I'm watching and supporting. So I'm looking forward to doing lots more of that in the next coming year. Exciting
to hear, man. Exciting to hear. You mentioned as well, AWOL Nation, of course, a mentor. There's another major mentor in your life, in music life, certainly, which is, of course, Mr. Shinoda. I mean,
absolutely.
What an amazing help he's been to you and a real inspiration point. How has he been in terms of that mentorship, advising you? What's the relationship?
Yeah. Mike's a very particular dude. I don't know that many people that are as that have seen as much as he's seen, that remain as hungry and passionate about music, navigating being in arguably the biggest band of the 2000s, and wanting to take on a solo project like he has, touring relentlessly, being a mentor for so many of us that are coming up that he's finding, be it on playlists or on alternative radio or on rock sound. I think that cultivating and curating what the next wave is going to be is something that he's passionate about, and I'm grateful because he's changed my life. He's given me opportunities to collaborate with him, be on his debut album, as well as open for him. We just did 2 shows together in California, so he's been cool. And there are not that many people that can speak to some of the things or challenges that I've had to navigate with as much personal experience as he has. One of the big things that I've needed to get his counsel and consultation on was how to set boundaries, how to speak to your fans, but how to also have a sense of independence and privacy from those fans, especially now with Instagram and social media. You're kind of expected to be on 24/7, available. If I respond to a fan's DM and all of a sudden that conversation goes in a direction that I'm not necessarily comfortable going, how do I backpedal, or how do I take my space in a way that isn't offensive? Right. How do I navigate the mental health of my fans? So those are the sorts of things that having people that have been through this before around you to give you advice on, that kind of shit is really helpful. So he's been a good guy.
Last question for you, man. Of course, we've talked a little bit about new music and new collabs and all that kind of stuff, writing processes. When do you think we might hear more of that? And of course, a full length. When do you think that might be dropping?
Well, I'm really excited to get new music out. It's of the most challenging components of scaling up these messages and watching this thing grow. One of the most challenging parts has been being more strategic and deliberate with the releasing of music, wanting to make sure that it all fits, wanting to make sure it all serves a purpose. Part of that has been slowing down and just making everything better. So I'm sitting on a lot of music right now, which is cool, but as a creative, it drives me crazy.
Yeah, I'll bet.
It drives me fucking crazy.
Yeah.
But we're getting new music out. Expect new music by the top of 2019.
Oh, wow.
So there's going to be new music coming, and it's fucking coming soon. And I'm going to put it here, because then if the label doesn't put it out, then we can watch this interview and blame them.
Proof. We know who to blame now. This is it. Straight from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, there's new music coming. The Modern Tragedy series is going to be a series. There's going to be multiple volumes. It's kind of serving to be my introduction, a kind of all-encompassing prologue of sorts before we begin the process of putting out full-length albums. But I'm already working on wrapping up this series and starting on the first full-length. So 2019 is going to have a lot of music. There's going to be a lot of touring. There's going to be some fire merch. And most importantly, We're going to be expanding on what XX resistance is, what it means to participate in being a grandkid. How can we take your voice and get it heard? How can we make sure that those in marginalized communities are having their voices heard as well? How can we speak for those without a voice of their own? These are the questions that I'm asking myself. These are the questions that I think it's important for rock and roll to be asking, and I'm very proud and excited to be a part of it. And I'm very, very grateful that Rock Sound has so early on given me an opportunity and a platform to get that message heard. And if you're hearing this and you're fired up, then join the revolution one grandkid at a time. It's okay to not be okay. I'm right here with you. Let's do this shit. I'm ready to go play the show right now. Let's go.
He's ready, man.
I'll see you in the mosh pit.
He's fired up. 2019. It's the year of grandson right here. Good to see you, man. Really appreciate
thanks,
it. All right,
James. Appreciate
grandson.
it.